and then I would allow 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. I tried to practice what I preach and get this down to my top 10 tips. But to be honest, I struggled because I had more that I wanted to share with you. So I've got some important considerations up front, and then I've got the top 10 tips, which I think you must do to be successful. But as I said, I must be honest, I had a little bit of trouble just trying to focus on the top 10 because I actually had a lot I wanted to share. So look, I'm going to find my presentation first, and I'll normally start with a story. Let me just find the preso. Now, can everyone see that? Am I sharing my screen?
Go into presenter mode. Sorry, into presentation mode.
What about now?
Not quite.
Darn it. Okay, I'm going to change the display settings on this
That's it.
screen.
Guys, we did this a few times in practice, and we've got it just right. Here we go.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with the personal story, and there is a reason for that. So look, just for sort of background, I'm from a small country town, the timber town called Warchoppy, and on the top left-hand side there's me on the horse. There, Trixie on the top left-hand side, and then next to that is my dad, Matt Graham. And would you believe that year at the Warhope show, we won the best cow of the show. We had best in class of the cow, and we won the championship ribbon. And would you believe my grandmother used to sew them together to make doonas. So winning the cow thing was a big deal. And my dream was to move to the big smoke, which was Sydney, and get a job, something to do with television. And I was very fortunate that I got a job in the dispatch department in the Cairns. So incredibly lucky. And I think my big career break came when I joined WT for the second time with Steady. And I've worked there for 26 years. And in 2000, I was incredibly lucky. I moved to New York and was the new business director of Mindshare. And I went from an office of, say, 50 people to an office of 1,000 people. And I know one year we won $1 billion worth of new business. So $1 billion worth of new business. We won Adweek Agency of the Year, and lo and behold, I got my bonus that year. So I had an incredible experience there, and then came back and have done new business for the last 20 years. So new business has been my life for 20 years. And that story, I'll come back to that in a sec. So as I mentioned, important considerations to consider, then the top 10s, then a quick summary, and then I'll take your questions. So the interesting thing is when I'm talking to people about new business, I think there's this really interesting thing called the knowing-doing gap. Because I say to somebody, how come you're not doing that? What are the barriers? And they go, well, we know that, Sparrow. We're doing what you're telling us. I'm going, actually, you know it, but you're not doing it. So there is this gap between knowing and what are the barriers, what's stopping you doing that. And there can be a whole host of reasons, but it's just so interesting that people say, oh, Sparrow, we know all that. I go, but you're not fucking doing it, So what are the barriers? What's stopping you? So overcoming those barriers is really important, and just understanding what they are to start with. Brand awareness, I think we mentioned with Beaver previously. No client's going to put an agency they've never heard of on a short list. They tend to put the agencies they've heard of, or the agencies that are hot, the agencies that got momentum, the agencies that are sort of winning business. And I think they say things like, they must be doing something right. I've heard about them. They're hot. What are they doing? So brand awareness, as I said, is important. PR is incredibly important. And they just need to, once again, have that brand awareness. Chemistry and casting. Now, look, I had this in my top 10 and I swapped it out, but chemistry is really important, obviously, making that initial connections, either prior to the meetings, and also the casting of who's going to be in the pitch team. And we spend a lot of time with some of the big groups discussing the right casting, the diversity, also profiling the client, what sort of people are they? What sort of people would they engage with? So once again, a lot of time comes into creating the chemistry before the meeting, when the meeting's on, and making sure the casting is right. Also, I think only last week I was helping an agency on a pitch, and they were rationalising everything. They spent so much time, and as media people, I get it. We're very rational people. We want to have all the stuff there. And as I said, we sort of laid out and we just over-rationalised every bloody thing. And I think, it's about getting the balance right between those rational connections and those emotional connections. Because as media people, I think we tend to go for the very rational. And we should, we need to have that rigor. But it's important you think, what will people remember? And there are certain types of leaders and clients, they're going to remember the emotional connections as well. Mr. Finance or Mr. Procurement may remember all the rational stuff, but it's about getting the balance right between the two. And I often say no blind dates. When you're pitching for a client, you should, if you can, know them. Met them beforehand, had some sort of engagement. It shouldn't be a blind date when they're coming in for their first meeting and you haven't met them before. And I spent a lot of time in my past life getting to know clients through the AANA, going to various events and networking. And that was a reason. I wasn't just always there for the free drinks. I was there to meet clients. I'd look at the name tags when I checked in, what clients were there, who was there, who do I need to connect with, and once again, have that connection with the clients prior to a pitch, so there were no blind dates. And I think that's so important. I remember a story. You'll all remember Annie Parsons, but Annie Parsons was going to the Australian Open tennis, and I said, I didn't think you liked tennis, and she looked at me and said, I don't, but I'm going to be sitting next to the CMO of our number one prospect. So she was going to be sitting next to the CMO and his wife and building this relationship 6 months before the pitch was going to be called. But she knew it was going to be called, and there she was building that connection with the client. So leverage your media partners, leverage anyone you know to, once again, start those connections. This is a big one, the Trinity P3 go on about. Darren Woolley often goes, benefits, not features. I mean, everyone talks about their toolbox. Clients don't give a fuck about your toolbox. They really don't. What are the features? What's in it for me? How will that help me grow my business? So don't get hung up on the the features. It's all about the benefits to the client, what this means to you, how this will grow your business, how will this improve this particular factor of your business. So benefits, not features. I've been to a couple of courses on listening. Hasn't always been my forte over the years. I've really had to work at this. And I think clients would say that we aren't very good listeners. And I mean, we need to be active listening, lean forward, listen to the client. And I used to want to show the client how smart I was, pick me, and I would jump in, but let them talk, listen to them and be a really active listener. And as I said, I've had to work on that my whole career. The other thing is that I also, when I look at a presentation, I go, what are the highlights? We normally have it, storyboarded up on the wall. And I break it down into sort of 8 to 10 minute slots. What's the memorable moment in that little bit? What's the bit in your section that people are going to really remember, that's going to resonate, that they're going to lean forward, that that's really going to capture their attention? So what are the memorable moments? Because people remember those things. So, if there's one thing, what would that be? And it normally wouldn't be a whole stack of PowerPoint slides. It'll be, a brilliant idea, an idea that's going to grow their business, a great innovation. It'll be something pretty special. So I look for those memorable moments. And also, I think often when we're presenting, I know in media, we always have too much to get through. And we have all these big decks normally. And it's, give your ideas and give your innovation, give it space, let it land and let it breathe. Let the client comment, let the client lean in, maybe, go back over the details again when you've got them in the palm of your hand there. Give the idea and the innovation a chance to breathe and sort of let it land. Don't rush on. Use use that pause incredibly valuably. I spent a lot of time with media brands and some of our other agency groups in the last 12 months. Their creds are incredibly professional, incredibly well done, really well designed, really well packaged. Their collateral is well written. Just that, this whole credentials and stuff, just the quality of some of the work I've seen has been world class. And, I thought we did some stuff well here, but, I've seen some of the best pictures I've seen in my career in the last couple of years. And it's really about the whole look and feel, the ideas, the innovation, the casting, but the whole creds and collateral has been very professional. And I will say video plays an important element. I'll come back to this, but I've seen great sizzle reels. I've seen brilliant case studies. I've seen brilliant videos for testimonials. I've seen brilliant videos on people and culture, where the staff talk about the culture and give it a very honest and authentic feel. So very great use of video. Agencies I work with have had a suite of videos, and some of them are like donuts. You've got the opening and closing of the sizzle, and the middle might change, so you might change that. But the music, the overall feel of the video is done, but you might swap out and change a little bit to personalize it in the middle. But as I said, some great use of video, very powerful. And also, I just want to talk about handouts. In the US, I was really lucky to go to a lecture by Professor Edward Tufte. And I think he went to Yale, and he's written about 5 or 6 books. The visual display of quantitative information, beautiful evidence, and a whole pile of books around visual representation and making, great information come to life in a visual way. And he would always have brilliant handouts. And I think in the US, we use handouts incredibly well. Normally A3, lots of information, maybe back and front, but really good use of data visualization and handouts. So, and once again, in Australia here too, I've seen some great handouts. And then I spent some time back at Group M last year, and Mark Lolbach said to me, "Sparrow, what's the difference between us and media brands?" So I'm sharing this story, and I said one thing: discipline. Because, back then, our friends at Group M would talk about stuff, and there'd be a lot of talk, but not so much action. Whereas I thought media brands were very action-orientated, very disciplined, and the rehearsal started on time. Everyone was prepared and was whatever it takes to make this happen. And I thought the discipline was outstanding. And that comes from leadership down, but it really was, a big difference between, both people sort of knew what they were supposed to do, but the discipline of some of these agencies was, really impressive. So my top 10 list, I had a lot there to cover with the considerations, but here's my top 10 that I wanted to sort of narrow down. And the first one is, number one, it's about the work. And really, it's in a credentials presentation, spotlighting and showing the best case studies. Those case studies, once again, should be well written. They could have, you could have videos. Your best work could be written a number of ways. We'd often have one case study, and it might be written from very much a results point of view, and then it might be tweaked to talk about innovation or collaboration. So one piece of work could be written in a number of ways to highlight various aspects of the work. And then obviously the pitch, it's about the work. Is the work the hero? Is this great? Are we proud of this work? Is the work good? Will the work, drive business growth? And I know this sounds really obvious. And sometimes, you're going, is this work good enough? Do we have to go back to the drawing boards? Do we have, is this idea good enough? And as I said, to me, very much a focus on the work. Number two, what makes you unique? This is a tough question. But the consultants ask you this question. I think Graham Webster asked this question: what makes your agency unique? And you've got to nail that and have a great answer for that. a very authentic answer. Number 3, simplicity is key. And once again, this is obvious, but people don't do it. We overcomplicate it. We use lots of jargon. We make it so complex. We over-rationalize it. Simplicity really is key. And actually, once you know all your stuff, how can you simplify your story? And I think this goes back to, I mentioned, I think 2 things which are great is that to tell a simple story, can you put that on a page? So can you put the campaign on a page? Can you put the strategy on a page? Can you put the whole campaign on a page and the client can look at it at a glance and see the strategy or, as I said, summarised in a page? We often used to do an A3 page, well designed, and then on the back would have the team so the client could show their boss or the board, here's what we're going to do with our new agency. Here was the amazing talent behind it. But how you can simplify your story, I used to do pitch on a page. So, the whole summary of pitch is on one page. And once again, on the back of it would normally be the team, and we give that to the CMO, and we get the CMO to share that. So really quite hard to do, to simplify and get it down to one page. But once again, a very powerful element if you can do that. And as I said, I know agencies who do it incredibly well. And it's a great tool. Capabilities is number 4. Obviously, what are your skill sets? But I think more importantly, what are the skill sets for today and tomorrow? So what skills do we have now, but for tomorrow as well? And obviously, there's a lot about data and text story. So what's your data and text story? And, once again, maybe you have to outsource this or white label it, but you've got to have a point of view and a perspective on what the client wants today, what they want for tomorrow, and what's your data and text story. Now, storytelling, I come back to this because I know it's obvious and everyone talks about it, but a lot of people just don't do it. So I always try to start the presentation with a powerful, relevant story. This one, obviously, I just started with the story about Warhope to Timbertown and my dad and stuff, and then my experience. So, how you introduce the team, what are relevant personal stories that are powerful, what are ways it would be memorable, what are ways it would be, once again, very relevant. And I thought I'd share a story. I was working with a team a few years ago now that were entering the Cannes Young Lions, and they had 24 hours to work on a brief, and they have 7 minutes to present. And the brief was around the Murdoch Children's Medical Research Foundation. And I went to see them, and I was on the way home, and it was, I think, getting a bit late, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and they had some great tactics. However, they hadn't cracked the opening or the close. And I think the opening of the presentation is one of the most important factors. How you open and grab their attention and get them in the palm of your hand is vital. And they didn't have that. So I said to the guys, come on, this is, what the Murdoch Children's Medical Research Foundation does. It will save lives. It's really vital. And, is there a relevant personal story? And lo and behold, Tim goes, wow, yes, of course. When I was born, I was a triplet, and we were all born prematurely. And my brother, Adrian, was really, really sick, and they weren't quite sure whether he was going to make it. So of the triplets, his brother, Adrian, as I said, was incredibly ill. And the doctor said to his parents that this may be the last time, so come and say goodbye to Adrian, and also maybe take a picture of Adrian to remember him by. And this is a picture of Adrian. And so Tim was telling me this story, and I said, my God, this is so relevant. This is brilliant. It's about, hospitals, medical research, and saving lives. And this is about saving lives. And lo and behold, the hospital said to his parents that, would you believe, they wanted to try a new treatment, and lo and behold, Adrian survived. And 25 years later, here's a picture of the triplets, all 3 of them, and Adrian has got a brand new daughter, Charlie, and that's his daughter there that he's holding. So children's medical research really helped this family, helped these three brothers, and once again, the circle of life. So they went home, they found these pictures, they started the presentation with these 2 slides. That was how they started their story. It was incredibly powerful. And they weren't successful in going to Cannes or to win. They came second, and they won a trip to Singapore to attend the Spikes. But it was just a great way because they had lots of tactics, lots of good thinking, but there's a powerful, relevant personal story to open the presentation that, once again, their audience found incredibly powerful. Number 6, speed and agility. Now, this is obvious, and I know this is a big area for you guys. But I'd say to you, the challenge is to prove it. Give me the case studies. Give me the evidence. Give me the proof that you can do this. So once again, have you got a great case study where you turn something around on a dime, 24 hours for a retail client? Do you have a client on video that talks about how you did that and how you delivered on this speed and agility to grow his business? Just give me proof around this, because everybody says it, but I want to see proof that you do it. And as I said, that couldn't be better than coming from the real work you do and a client talking about how unbelievably you turned this around on a short deadline and had this amazing outcome and result. So to me, don't talk about it, prove it, and share powerful stories that you can deliver on this. Number 7 is engagement, interactivity. I always say if you haven't engaged the client in the first 7 minutes, you're pretty much screwed. The old 10-minute rule, if you haven't engaged them between the 7th and 10th minute of the pitch at the start, you're not going to do that well. And as I said, I've done various courses where you really had to, once again, grab their attention, get them involved, get them talking. And so we would really think about how we were going to engage the client in that first 10 minutes. And once again, we'd look at, I think I mentioned before, the 10-minute slots, how we're going to engagement there, how, what's going to be a memorable moment there, what's going to spike their attention, get them involved, what's going to be interactive. And there are lots of ways we talk about involving the client. Could be some sort of exercise, could be some sort of game, as long as it's relevant and, doesn't put anyone on the spot. It's not kind of confrontational. So we definitely think about ways to involve the client in the story, in the pitch, and once again, get them involved from the very first 10 minutes or 7 minutes. I've mentioned this before, number 8, a number of times when you're talking about anything, what's the evidence? What's the proof? And show me the rigor. And sometimes you're not going to have the time to show all this. But I know in a number of pitches, someone would, hold up something and go, here's a book of rigor. Here's all the evidence. We don't have time to go through it today, but we can leave it with you. So once again, show me that you've done the work. I don't have to see it all, but if I ask a question, you can go to it. You can revive it. You can talk about it. You can cover off the rigor. So yeah, really important. Jumping ahead here to number 9, people and culture. Now, this is pretty obvious, but I think here, once again, show me the evidence. Show me your churn. Everyone lies about this. Everyone manipulates the figures. What are your real stats? Maybe let some of the people, have them on video or have them there in person to talk about the culture of your agency, why people stay, why the culture is so brilliant, why your churn is less than everybody else, the quality of your senior people. So once again, think of compelling ways to prove that you have great people and culture. In some cases, that may be best places to work or some sort of other outside influences that measure this. Or it could just once again come from your real people talking about what they love about your agency. But I do want to see some stats. And I know a new business a pitch consultant who really wanted to get underneath this, and they asked for the head of people and culture to be in the chemistry meeting, and they asked to meet some of the people on their business, and they wanted to have a discussion with them in the meeting without the leadership to talk about what made the agency such a great place to work. And number 10 is the pitch plan. Of course, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a process. And of course, I keep banging on about it, you've got to rehearse. But, you know, to be pitch fit, you do have to have a plan. You've got to have the discipline. You've got to have the process. And as I said, you know, I normally would rehearse at least 3 times. And that plan, you know, once again, at an agency I worked with, there were 3 levels of when a pitch came into the agency. They were categorized, you know, how much money we're going to spend on the pitch, what level of commitment, what staffing was all discussed up front in our pitch plan. And as I said, they were sort of graded. And we had a plan, we followed it, we're very disciplined, we rehearsed, and it was a well-oiled machine. So once again, a lot of agencies say they have it. I'm not sure they do. Do they follow it, and do they have the discipline to make it happen? So really important. So as I said, I tried to keep it relatively simple, even though I know I've thrown lots in there. But the top 10, again, which I'll just recap, put a showcase on the work. So it's about the work. Number 2, what makes you unique. Number 3, all around simplicity. Number 4, capabilities, but most importantly, for today, but what about tomorrow? Number 5, storytelling, very much around what's a personal, relevant story. Speed and agility at number 6, but prove it to me. Show me that you do it for your current clients and it's real and tangible and I want to hear it. Number 7 is engagement and interactivity. How have you engaged them in the pitch? Have you engaged them in the presentation? And once again, do that up front. Don't leave it to the end when you've lost them. Give me evidence and proof. Show me the rigor if I want to see it. Number 9 is around people and culture. And then number 10 is being pitch fit, having a plan and the discipline to make it happen. I've tried to make my slides very visual today. But once again, someone else may want to see all that rationale. You can have that in a handout or a book of rigor, you know, some other way to show that work. So there's the top 10. How do I go time-wise? I just check I was supposed to have 30 minutes. So now I'm just going to ask any questions.
Guys, just call out your questions or put it in the chat feature there. Greg, can you see the chat feature?
Yes. Hi, Greg. What's come as a pitch on a page? Okay, cool. Okay, so the first one is around the page, pitch on a page or a page. Normally, as I said, it summarizes either the whole pitch or it could just summarize strategy on a page, show the strategy. And normally it's very visual, very well designed, and would have only headlines. So it would be on a billboard. It would have your top headline, the chapters of the story, but not the complete story. And then, you know, some key visuals that brought either the idea to life or some of the memorable moments you would see on the page. So hard to describe without sort of showing you one, but as I said, it would either be, it really is, if I only read one thing, what would that be? And put it all on one page. And our friends, there are certain people that are masters of this. And as I said, they would spend a lot of time and effort putting it on one page, getting it well designed, and just leaving them with that one big handout. No one's going to read, War and Peace and all this, stuff that we give them. So if they only read one thing, what would it be? And as I said, make it very visual, really well designed, and something people would keep. And as I said, we used to put the team on the back, so you'd have the pitch on a page or the campaign on the page, and on the back the pictures of the team. So they go, okay, that's what the agency did, and they're the brilliant people that I met. Oh, that's right, I met that lady, she was awesome. So it would recap the talent and then the story of the pitch. Greg, tips for engagement in a virtual world. Now, look, this is more challenging, but once again, I would have some sort of icebreaker, some sort of exercise, something where I got them involved, and I would think about something was relevant. I mean, not just something for the sake of it, but it would be an energizer, but it would relate to what I want them to remember. And once again, I was doing some training last week, and I got people to take their shoes off and put themselves in the CMO shoes and discuss what was vital to the CMO. But it was just a visual exercise of doing something. It can be a puzzle. I've had a lot of things where you might lay something out and you get the client to map things. So you might get them to sort of, as I said, a puzzle or trivia. I mean, there's a whole host of them. Once again, as long as it's relevant. Don't just do it for the sake of it. It's got to be relevant. And once again, the introductions. I mean, like someone's talking there about engagement. Everyone can just introduce themselves, but tell someone a personal, relevant story or something that relates to what you want them to take away. Then there just may be a way of introducing people in a way, once again, that captures their imagination. That's more memorable than just, hi, I'm Sparrow. I've seen postcards. I've seen lots of visuals where I maybe would show a visual of a postcard that would show some of my experience, but it would be a visual element of that. So just ways of showcasing the talent, and as long as it's memorable. Someone talked about budgets here. They don't have a lot of money for presentations. To me, it doesn't have to be slick, but it does have to be well presented. Even if it's really simple, keep it just black and white, or keep the type simple. Just try to simplify it, but make it simple and stylish. And look, this is a bit of a challenge for you because at some of those agencies they do have in-house designers. With the big agency groups, we have a creative person who's designing the slides, designing all the boards, all the decks and everything like that. We'd have people that would do the videos. But once again, some of the videos were done for, $2 or $3 grand. So I'm not talking big productions, but they would go, get your client on an iPhone to do a testimonial. Like, it doesn't have to be slick. It's what they say that's powerful. It's not the production quality. Will your client go on camera and say you're the best media agency they've ever worked with? They're agile, they deliver, and that I can see the whites of his eyes that it's the truth, it's authentic, and he's not full of what. So if your clients will go on video and give you a great testimonial, and once again, it's got to be authentic and real, but very powerful. I think testimonials are one of the most powerful things you can do, but they've got to be real, and once again, they don't have to be slick. So I don't let the production stop you from doing it, because I think if you can be authentic, you can be real. You don't. In fact, I think too slick these days is actually a negative. Forget the show; they want the business. So keep it very authentic and real. But think of other ways that you can tell your story. And as I said, video and handouts are a powerful way to do it.
I got one for you, Greg.
Yeah, got it.
That's not in chat. How do you feel about swimming upstream on pitches? Like, is that a detractor, or is it better to keep to the brief, or if there's an opportunity to, go above and beyond?
Mate, I always say go above and beyond. Of course, what more can we do? These are the people in the room. How can we impact the people who aren't in the room? Who isn't here that's a decision maker? So yeah, I would, even though, and the consultants will have the shits with me when I say this, because the consultants will say, you can't contact the client. I go that. I always do. If I get into trouble, I get into trouble, right? And I've been smacked down over the years, and so be it. But and I've had clients, ring me up and go, "Can you please stop sending me stuff?" I go, "Okay, I'm going to," But did you read that last handout? But at least they remembered me. I mean, maybe I went too far and I need to pull it back. But I much preferred to be remembered for the guy that sent the stuff to them, followed up, followed all the questions, covered all the decision makers, than the people that can't bloody remember. And what was their names again? Whereas, can you tell that agency to, stop sending me stuff? It's a bit like telling Sam to stop PR. It's not going to happen. It's good. So I ignore the consultants, don't tell them. Now, obviously, it's a fine line. But no blind dates. I believe, I would always have the CEO ring the client before the meeting and have a discussion if they hadn't met before. That's what I would do. Meet them, have a chat, connect. I mean, I know it's obvious, but people don't do it. Turning up to a credentials presentation and you've never met anyone, pretty crazy.
I've got a question. What's your best and worst pitch? Like the worst thing that's ever happened to you in a pitch and the best thing that's ever happened to you?
Actually, I can sort of do both in the one pitch. So it came to the US and we'd been working on this pitch for 7 months. We had a small telco and it was bought by a big telco. So our telco spent 200 million, but the main telco spent over 600 and they were going to merge them. So we knew the pitch was coming. And so I worked because I wanted everything to work well on the current piece of business. Like we couldn't fuck anything up, obviously. But also I used every client presentation of a way to tell our good story. So every whip, I would ask every whip, okay, how else are you telling all the good works you've done? Are you showcasing that? You did a brilliant buy there. You've got great innovation there. How can you showcase that? You're bringing another new idea. So I used every opportunity to help sell and make sure they remembered the good things that the agency was doing. And then, lo and behold, we went out to the pitch, rehearsed all night. The designer was working on it. And then we came back and we had a rehearsal at 7 a.m. And would you believe everyone was knocking on the door in a hotel and we about to start. I boot up the computer. Lo and behold, the computer didn't work and I'd lost the presentation and the laptop was fried. And this pitch is going to happen in 5 or 6 hours. And I always had this rule that before you went to bed, either me or the designer would save extra copies of the presentation onto a USB. Of course, I didn't fucking do it. It was 3 o'clock in the morning and I kicked myself because I actually didn't listen to my own advice. So that was the worst thing because I basically thought, well, they're going to fire me on the spot. They're going to send me back to Australia and we actually had no presentation. So luckily, I had kept all the notes from the night before. I knew the slides that were updating. We had some boards. We did have a leave behind, and lo and behold, we called the IT office back in New York, and they took the hard drive out of one computer, put it into the other, and we reclaimed the presentation. So I went from, basically, being fired, wasn't me, to we recovered the presentation. I had to move rehearsal back an hour, but we'd recovered the presentation. We rehearsed. We actually, in that rehearsal, we edited even more stuff out of it. So we made sure that the presentation was very much evidence-based. So it was very no frills. There was, once again, very much around their business solution. And we won the business and it was worth $600 million. So it went from being an absolute disaster, but as I said, we turned it around. But it was interesting though, because it was addressing their business problem and we stripped out a lot of the, as I said, the rationale, and it was really evidence proof-based. And once again, we won. I mean, I've had lots of other presentations that were really successful, but that was one that, could have been doomed, that actually ended up, we won it. And then that year, we went on to win another $500 million worth of business. So yeah, it was literally, but we were so prepared. We had worked for 6 months. Luckily, I'd had a backup, but we had a. And I think I could have recreated the presentation because we had an old version. But anyway, it turned around. Look, someone else has asked me, going, you still got the top 10 things here. It all comes back to the work. Is the work good? Are you got great case studies? Can you tell it in a compelling and memorable way? And for God's sake, as I said, start the presentation on a high, because if you lose them in the beginning, you'll never get them back. If they're bored, you just won't keep them. So as I said, I think the first 7 minutes are the most important 7 minutes of any presentation. Because someone used to always say to me, oh, Sparrow, I've left the big reveal. How much we're going to save them and the big reveal at the end. And I go, well, what the fuck's the point of doing that? They're going to be asleep after 2.5 hours of media jargon. So move that slide. That's the first slide. That's the first thing we're going to do is tell them the benefit, the ROI, the saving, or whatever the value was. That's the first thing. It's not the last thing. So often, we used to hide all the good stuff till the end, which, as I said, I thought was ridiculous. And if a client said to me, you've got 10 minutes to present, what would you present? It used to happen to us back in the day, back when I was at JWT, the creative guys would get all that, and instead of having 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'd be continually thinking in my head, okay, what are my 10 or 7 most powerful elements here? What am I going to do when the creative director turns to me and says, you've got 7 minutes now? What am I going to cover? What am I going to jump to? What am I going to, and I knew that in my head. I was ready. So, if someone said to me, you haven't got 2 hours, you've only got 10 minutes, what would that be? What would that story? What would the evidence be? What would make that incredibly memorable? And would that showcase the best work? Any other questions? Can't believe it. Mobber.
All right. Look, I think that's it. Now we've got one more session with you on the 19th at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
And we've just got to find out what that's going to look like, but we look forward to that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If there's any other questions or anything that anyone wants to ask, we can connect you with Greg to kind of cover that off. So just remember, the next one's on the 19th. Newsletter, I think, went out last week. So if you don't engage with that, please engage with the newsletter. A lot of effort goes into that. We hold a lot of information for you guys and bank it up for that. So there's things about deals and savings and things that we think that will add value to your day. The IMAA campaign is happening at the moment. Radio's gone out. Out of home's going out this week. Digital's happening now. BBot's happening next week. So keep an eye out for that. Anything else, guys? Any questions? Just reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time today. Sparrow, thank you so much for that on behalf of everyone. It's fascinating. It's interesting. And we look forward to picking it up in 2 weeks. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, buddy. No worries.
Short week.